Welcome to episode 2 of Power in Perspective podcast. So today's episode is all about the sport of para powerlifting, and we're really lucky to have Hani with us today. I'm so thrilled to have Hani. Hani is actually the very first person I met in a powerlifting gym, and she got me out of my belt when I was stuck in it all those years ago. So I'm very excited to have her now.
Welcome, Hani.
Yeah,
Welcome,
thank you.
Hani.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me along.
Thank you so
And
much for making the
remembering
time.
that story of trying to get you out of that belt. That was hilarious.
It was. And
Making me old.
you showed me how lovely people with a 100 kg bench can truly be.
Like just giant teddy bears. Yep.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for making the time to chat with us today, Hani. We know you're away, so it's so nice of you to make the time to speak with us.
That's okay. It's totally fine. It's great. It's great to do these podcasts and have a chat, have a bit of a chin bag and share the story.
Yeah, excellent. I'm going to introduce Hani. Hani is a Paralympian who recently represented Australia in Paris. Hani, alongside with Ben Wright, were the first Aussie Para Powerlifters to qualify to compete at Paralympic Games in 12 years. Hani has represented Australia on many occasions and has rode the wave of highs and lows as an athlete with admirable dedication and resilience to get to where she is today, all with a big smile on her face and never without a flex of the guns for whoever is fortunate enough to be in her company.
Yeah. That's me. It's a nutshell, isn't it? Love it.
So we wanted to talk about, you first started powerlifting and you were competing in 3-lift able-bodied powerlifting. And we wanted to talk about what made you start competing.
Primarily it was just the end of the surgeries and I needed something to, I suppose, have a goal. I needed a goal somewhere along the line. Rather than just going to doing rehab and going into a gym and all that kind of stuff and trying to build on strength, I needed to, I suppose, beat myself in something and have a measure of some sort. And that's when I sort of thought, maybe a powerlifting gym might be the way to go. I've always been in a gym somewhere in my life, but at that time I was at Fitness First. And then I walked in a couple of powerlifting gyms in Brisbane, and then I think I started in like January, December-ish, around about there, and then the first competition was like in February. Meant to be a bench-only comp because I had a lot of surgeries in that time, but we did the 3-lift and just to see how the legs would hold up, really.
And what was your bench press back then in your first comp?
Yeah, I never would want to take my bench past 90 kilos back in those days. I've always kept it relatively
Which is
low.
massive.
Yeah, so then the
Which is
first
huge.
comp, I think it was 97.5 was the first comp, what we pulled out out of the bag and stuff. So, yeah.
And then were there many other girls benching around 90 kilos? Like there's so many strong benches now, but like were there many girls?
No, there wasn't.
She was the idol. I remember that. She was the woman with the 100 kg bench press. She was all of our role model in Brisbane.
I'd heard of you too. And you were bench queen then. You were bench queen back then.
We all wanted to be Hani. We all wanted to be in the Queen's presence.
and Hani, can you tell us a little bit about your disability?
Yeah, so I was born with a birth defect with both legs being severely bowed, 45 degrees, hip down to the ankles. And it's called bilateral leg metaphyseal dysplasia. I was given that diagnosis later on in life, just I suppose give it a bit of a label. Otherwise, we didn't know what caused that from birth or how to fix it from birth. I had a lot of issues, I suppose, when I was in primary school and I was trying to do all sorts of sports. And then I started the progress from about 9, investigating what it could be, what are the genetics or the whatever it is, the pathology reasons as to why and how we could fix it. And that's when it all started, all my surgeries and stuff. And my short growth my short height is because of a surgical reason. Otherwise, I'm meant to be actually quite tall. But, short. I sort of stayed short from about 10.
Okay. And how do you manage like the pain that you feel from your knees and your joints on a day-to-day basis?
Look, it's hard. It's really hard to manage. It's very, very hard. It's fatiguing. It's extraordinarily fatiguing, and I have fights with it all the time. But I think I came to a point in my life and with all my surgeries that I couldn't. You can't get rid of pain sometimes when it's chronic. Sometimes you get temporary pain and you can have a Panadol and you'll be right the next day or something. Mine is deep-seated. It's like your bones are breaking. So I had to sort of change the mindset around my legs and what I was faced with. So it is hard, very hard to manage. But I had to introduce using a wheelchair in my life, using crutches, that kind of stuff. I actually came to Melbourne without any crutches, and I thought, you know what, I'd be a hero and just go around the DFO and without my wheelchair and just take my time. And I'm a bit stubborn that way. And it ended up not in a good way, and I ended up having to go get crutches so that I could actually get to the taxi rank.
Yeah.
That's how bad it got. But I just, as much as I feel like sometimes I'm less of a human in so many ways, but I've just got to accept that's who I am. It doesn't change me, who I am up here or my heart. At the end of the day, it's just an extension, but you manage the pain by just being a friend with it, really.
Yeah.
If it's chronic, you've got to just accept it for what it is, and then you do all of the other things around it to make it less. Don't treat medications like it's going to kill your pain or get rid of the pain. It just takes the edge off and allows you to live a normal life. And that it's just changing the mindset around pain medication and all that kind of stuff, and using other things like complex machines, electrical stimulation, jumping in the pool, making the time to do all of the things of rehab and prehab and recovery and all that kind of stuff. Don't skimp out on time in doing all of those things, and then you'll actually be able to manage your life a little bit better.
Yeah, which is a big job, I'm sure, to try and manage it all. But the level of an athlete that you are, I guess, like having the sport to really focus on and throw yourself into is such a positive, with being able to be your best and to take care of yourself in that way. I'll never forget, before Paris or just after Paris, there was the Channel 9 interview that you did, and you were speaking about when you first met Simon, who's Hani's coach, and you guys were speaking about he was the first person that actually looked at what you could do and not what you couldn't do. And for you, with the sport of para powerlifting, I think that's where you've really found your thing, with focusing what you can do, and you're really good at it.
Amazing.
Which I thought was such a beautiful comment when I heard you speaking about that.
Yeah. That Channel 9 for that. Tell you, I was only just out of the ICU doing that interview. But watching back on that interview, and because Simon and I did it in different states and at different times, and he got to see what I talked about. And you could tell I got him in their feels at that time. So I'm like, damn it, I wish I was there. He used to see him fucking got him in the feels.
I was there, and I was to the left of the camera, and I was crying. It was so beautiful to watch.
We have a very unique relationship and stuff, and I really appreciate that he does see me as an individual. He sees all of his athletes as individuals, and he really capitalises on the fact of what you can do. He doesn't see disability, doesn't see man or woman or anything like that, and he focuses on you as a person, because some days you'll have horrible days, you'll have good days, and that kind of stuff. And he's family to me. He's my baby brother, basically, and I really cherish that kind of relationship, because, I've had some pretty big highs and some pretty big, just tragic lows through my career so far. But he's been there 100% of the time, and he's never judged me, not once at all. Like, I've had the biggest break after Paris, because I was just about ready to throw his barbell down the street because I was just so tired.
It's a huge lead up, isn't it? And it's not only just your performance and your training and everything leading up. There's so many new experiences that come with you at your first Paralympic Games, I'm sure, like different media commitments and meeting new people. And it was such a big thing, wasn't it, before you even got there?
Yeah, it's huge. I knew it would be huge, and I didn't expect it to be as huge as what it was, I think, because you've got so many distractions happening, and they've made me, what they call the poster girl for powerlifting, and that's a huge honour, and a lot of people look up to me, and to me and for Simon, he has done so much for para powerlifting and for the sports of any Paralympic athlete. I wanted to continue to help him down that path and do the thing that I could do, and that was actually press a barbell and do it well, bring the medals in, and actually really start that promotional side of things, getting that access to information, education, and that kind of stuff. I did all of that that bit, whereas he was the person that was networking and going out there and being a little minion to get that, the awareness of the sport on the ground. Well, I'm up in the air and the social media side of things and that. So that's why we make such a great team.
Yeah.
They both have the same vision for the sport.
Yeah, it's exciting. And I know you're a massive advocate in growing the Aussie Para Powerlifting Team. What do you say to up-and-coming para powerlifters when you meet them at the recent workshops that you've been attending? And, what advice do you give to them? Because they're also excited when they finally get to meet Hani and they hear about your experience and, how you've got to where you are today. What do you actually say to them?
What do I say? I say to them, age is just a number. At the end of the day, as long as you're still alive, the dream's not over.
Yeah.
So we go through so much, when we're young, to try and figure out what we want to do, so when you're 89 and still maybe not have figured out what you wanted to do, but you've got to try everything. I say your dream is not over as long as you're still on this earth. And, doing powerlifting, doing a sport, everything changes with sport. It does give you more hopes, and it gives you dreams, it gives you goals.
Friendships.
Everything. Friendships, you get to travel the world. If you give yourself the time and the commitment and show yourself what you can truly do, and it's a long game. I say this to everyone, it's a long game. Benching is not something you can rush. You would know, Hannah, if you try and rush it, that barbell's going to come and bite you, and it's going to bite you hard.
It's going to come knock you in the neck.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you take your time with it. It's I always say it's like a dance. It's a slow, beautiful dance. And then when you see that progress over time sort of grow, it's about you growing with it. You evolve so much through benching, from strength to resilience to then, meeting your goals, meeting your PBs, and then just eventually getting to a Com Games, then getting to a Paralympic Games. I never thought in my time, I'd see myself now saying that in under 4 years, I managed to medal at a Com Games and qualify at a Paralympic Games.
Give me goosebumps. Give me goosebumps.
But it's possible. It is 100% possible, and I tell them, every one of them, that. I said it's hard. Don't get me wrong. Any sport's hard. This one is exceptionally hard because it will knock you down mentally every time when you think you can put that half a kilo on or a kilo, and you think, yep, no, I've got it in the bag. But if you're mentally not there, walk away, restart. And I always tell them that. I teach them all of that. So that's what I say to them,
Yeah, and you're a massive encourager too, especially
Very
these. Now, for those that don't know, para powerlifting and free lift powerlifting have completely separate rules. Para powerlifting, being a Paralympic sport, is a lot more strict with technique and judgment. The weight categories are different, and an athlete has to be classified to be able to compete in the sport. So what was the main thing you noticed, Hani, when you first started with para powerlifting? What were some of the things, the rules and different ways that a competition is ran that you noticed when you first became a para powerlifter?
Well, I suppose with normal, sort of able-bodied powerlifting, the free lift one, with the refs and that, you don't have to make it pretty on the way up. You could sort of, make it a bit ugly and have an uneven lockout. That was the biggest thing. You could grind something till next Tuesday and still get a white light. You can't do that in para powerlifting. It has to be precise. It has to be, gracefully done and perfectly done. That was probably the biggest, the rule change for me. But then I also trained with the mindset of that everything has to be perfect. So I think, Hannah, you would know, if I didn't, have it perfectly going up every single time, I didn't like it.
I remember that.
I was ready, I was ready for that. Not having your legs down, so you end up changing, you don't have much leg drive. Your thoracic extension changes quite considerably. When you press on a normal bench, you tend to press backwards towards the rack, whereas para powerlifting, you press up. So gravity is not your friend. So it makes it a lot heavier and harder in the gravity perspective of it. So yeah, those were the main things I think that was very different. And then obviously competition day is are very different as well.
I know.
It's a spectacle in para powerlifting. You see the lights and the music, everything's going.
Smoke machines.
Smoke machines and and then if you get no lift, the whole your stage is flooded red. no lift, and you're just like, oh my god, you know what I'm saying? It's like, ooh.
Yeah.
The huge differences there, and celebrations, that kind of stuff. Whereas, like, normal powerlifting, it's just like, I feel as though bench is just one of those, like, it's the stepping stone to get to the fun one of a deadlift. You know what I mean? Like, it's so skipped across, with the bench. But if you had a bigger bench on your 3 lifts, that's what's going to define you in a bigger lift total.
That's what I tell people. That's what I tell people.
Yes.
That's the one thing that's going to make you the better lifter at the end of the day, is if you have a big bench, that couple extra kilos that you're able to score on, that's what's going to make you the winner at the end of the day, in my opinion. But
I agree with you.
Definitely.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, well, we've loved watching your journey so far, and I've been so fortunate to be able to see from when you started at your very first competition right up until being close by on the field of play in Paris, and it's been so beautiful to watch. And I know with any highlights, there's always those challenges that you face along the way, and I think that is what makes you such a resilient and incredible athlete. And I think to anyone else that watches and see anyone else's success, is that those challenges that you face along the way are really what shape you long term, even though it sucks as you're dealing with different things to manage and get to any achievement.
So can I ask a question, Hani? So if we go back to your early days in powerlifting, one of my strongest memories watching you was actually seeing you come back from that injury to your knees all that year ago. How did it feel coming back and finding powerlifting through that transition?
I think about, it makes me happy to be able to go into para powerlifting.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people actually know that I tried to get into it back in 2016.
Oh, really?
I wasn't disabled enough. I was still too mobile. And that was well before I started any of the surgeries. So then, so I couldn't get into it then. I was too abled, and then I thought, bugger it. I did the surgeries in hopes that actually would fix all the things that I was thinking of. Like, I wanted to do so much more with my life. But it ended up sort of like going down this little wiggly path, and I ended up circling right back around again and going back to para powerlifting. I became disabled enough in a twisted way, and then a really twisted positive way. I came back around again, and then I was able to do it. I just got over the line.
And what Honey's speaking about there is the classification process. So, like, that is where you're assessed by either a qualified classifier, which is generally a doctor or a physiotherapist, and they classify if you're able to compete in the sport. So
I was happy. So I really liked doing it. I loved it. I loved doing the benching, squatting, that kind of stuff, because it really sort of like everyone getting together and everyone's energy on the day and that kind of stuff, because everyone's just like vying for that PB and to do better than themselves, that kind of stuff, and they're all cheering each other on. And when it got to that point where I couldn't do it anymore, and then it's like, where do I go from here? And then in comes Simon, and he's like, I think you can do this. And then, came back, and then I could actually do it. Actually, it was a big sigh of relief for me. It was actually, I could still do a sport. That was the biggest thing for me, because I love doing sport. It just teaches you so much about yourself and the growth of yourself, So I was really happy that I was able to transition back to it, Well,
we're so happy that you were able to become a para powerlifter too, because you inspire me every day. So it's really awesome.
You inspire everybody. You're also just such a kind human being as well.
Yeah. So what's next for you with competitions, Hani? Like, what's happening? You said you've had a break since Paris.
I had a lovely break. Thank you. I touched barbell for 3 months.
Yeah, wow, well deserved.
So when I went back to touching a barbell at camp just recently, I was like, Simon, I'm just a little bit anxious about this, not touching that barbell.
How did the weight feel, after that long? How does the weight feel? Because I know after 2 weeks off bench press, I always feel like it's so heavy.
I know, I'm the same way. I'm like, oh.
Whoa.
Everything would feel really relatively heavy. But I was whacking out 80, 85, 90, like it was like yesterday. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. If you asked me to do 140, I'm probably not going to move it. But I think about back, all those years ago where, when you did have a long extended break, punching out 60 kilos would feel super heavy. But I was able to jump back to, doing 90 and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, it's not bad. The memory's there. The muscle remembers, I haven't lost much of the strength in that regard, and I know what I'm capable of and stuff. So it was a lovely break. But next competitions, So it's going to be a busy year, I think, that's for sure. I know we have one in March, but I'm not competing, but I will be attending. That's at Wollongong.
Excellent.
This is a lot of the new kids are coming on the block. They're coming to this particular camp and getting started because it's all about experience and getting under that bar, getting in that competition setting. So a nice little national one there, but my main starter will be July. That will be a big sanctioned event because that'll start my Commonwealth qualification pathway, which is only for this year. So everyone in the Commonwealth countries has this year to basically qualify for Commonwealth Games, and my sport didn't get cut, which is great. So I've got that one in July, and then we go to Worlds in Egypt. Who would have thought I'd get to go to Egypt?
Egypt, and that's October, isn't it? October?
Yeah, so that'll be October, so I have to do that one. That's now then the start of the Paralympic cycle. So there's 2 cycles that I've got to do now, one for Commonwealth Games and one for the Paralympic one. So I have to be aware of what I have to do and all that, so the compulsory events and that kind of stuff. So they're the 2 main ones for this year. Depending on how I go on those particular 2 competitions and how I sort of sit on the qualifying rankings for Commonwealth Games will decide whether or not I have to do the next one after that, which is December. And they'll be back at Wollongong, I believe.
Yes.
So that'll determine that one. And then we go on to next year, which, then my Paralympic cycle continues, and then I go to Thailand in March, April, I think it is. And then Commonwealth Games will be July. And in between that periods, we've got a whole ton of camps, and we're going to do a camp overseas. Where this all fits, I don't know.
Well, Simon knows. There's so much planning going on, and it's really, really exciting because the sport is growing, and there's lots more opportunity for people to join in the para powerlifting community, and it's just such an awesome sport to be involved with. Even as a referee myself, I love the people that I get to meet and the stories that I hear, and I think feeling strong is just such an empowering thing for everyone, and to be able to have friends that enjoy feeling strong just makes it so much of a enjoyable experience, doesn't it?
100%.
Yeah. So I have to ask you a question, Hani. So we were talking all about your sports and everything, but behind the bench queen, there is a human. So how do you manage?
Sometimes Ellie says.
How do you manage being Hani? How do you manage life, work, all the commitments around being a person and balancing that with being the bench queen and being a role model, training and building the sport up, etc., and all this travel? How do you manage being Hani?
I actually personally don't know how it happens. I really don't. I think having the support of Simon is a big one. He knows where I need to be at any given stage or moments, that kind of stuff. He's always touching base with me, my partner, always being very encouraging. I think, having a partner that actually appreciates the sport, knows what sport is like, loves the sport herself. That it was a non-negotiable in terms of equality for me, in someone where they'll always be there. They understand that I need sleep. Yeah. I need to eat, I need to focus, I need to kick up the bum when I don't feel like training, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, support, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your whole support network, everyone around you on that, because at the end of the day, when my mum said to me, she said, you've actually found something that you're good at, you were born to do this. And I sat there and I was like, it's much bigger than just me pressing a barbell. It's the whole, how we all connect together, really, through sport and trying to get other people out there in the middle of nowhere that, that's a quadriplegic, has no legs, whatever it is, but they have strong upper body. They sit there and they see me and they just actually, I could do that. That just then gives them a drive, gives them a dream. So that alone, just that whole, when impact. They get inspired, it inspires me. Yeah, so it's the impact of each other with that whole feedback circle where you say to me, you two are inspired by me. That inspires me to want to do better, to want to continually to go on social media, do all of the things that I need to do, as tedious as it can be sometimes, because, it's very, Courtney, it's very tedious.
Yeah, always can be draining. I think your doggos are good companions, but aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They are. They're the best, and everyone loves seeing those pups and that, and they like sort of seeing the journey as we go along, all the stupid things that I get up to. I try and make it fun, I try and think of other creative ways to reach an audience, that kind of stuff, and You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you're just trying to spin it up everywhere, but it's always about that connection and having a connection to someone out there that just then goes, you know what, there's more to my life than sitting in this wheelchair, being on disability support pension, having a DIS to try and make, sort of my life work better. But if they introduce sport, they become more independent. And, I said this to Dylan. I said, Dylan, you're a big role model for this, and I can't stress it enough. Where I first met you, you couldn't get off the bench on your own, and you struggled to breathe and all that kind of stuff. And then we were at camp. He was doing somersaults off that bench, And I'm just like, dude, like the growth in that one person in such a 2-year span of being able to talk, being more sociable,
Yes, it's a beautiful
being
story.
able to manage himself so much more without having a carer. This is because of sport.
It's empowering.
It's amazing.
You know what I mean?
And this is what Simon does. Simon does this as a coach. So for those that don't know, Dylan Brand is one of the up-and-coming Aussie Para Powerlifters. And Dylan first discovered para powerlifting from going to a physio appointment, I think maybe for shoulders. The physio recognised that he had quite impressive pressing strength, and he now gets to train with Simon 5 days in the gym, and he will be competing in Wollongong in March, and I also think he's lined up to compete in Egypt at the World Cup later this year. Is that right, Honey?
Yeah, so it'll be myself, Dylan, and Benny. So
awesome.
The 3 main ones that we're currently focusing on at the moment, but depending on how the year sort of folds out a little bit, depends on the invitation sort of expands on that Aussie team and so forth. So that's why I said to everyone that who is competing in March and then July potentially, do every single one of these competitions and see how your progress actually moves. Depends on whether or not that invitation gets extended out to you and that you're supported. It all comes down to you at the end of the day. We're handing you the silver platter, but you're the one that's got to run with it at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, you show the progress, you show the resilience, you show everything. We'll 100% back you to get you there. So yeah.
So exciting. And I'm excited to see Dylan as well represent Australia, because watching his progress day to day in the gym, and I think last week he must have pressed 170. Is that right? Did you see that, Honey? Was it 170?
I think the last thing I saw was he finally got the 175 on a pin press.
Yeah, 175 pin press, actually.
That's pretty impressive.
Amazing.
Pin pressing with Simon, you've got to release your entire body on that pin, and then you've got to go ram it back up again and reset yourself. So, it's a hard pin press, especially on the para bench. So I was really proud that he finally got his 3 big girly plates on there and the collars.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I'd love to have a 175 bench eventually one of my days. Maybe Brisbane.
I'm sure you will. We've got about, what's that, 7.5 years?
If anybody can do it, it's you, Honey.
Yeah.
How old will you be by Brisbane, Honey?
I think I'll be 51.
I'll be 52. So imagine us. How exciting!
My wheelie walker out there with my electronic sort of like moped out on the platform, as you can only imagine. But I'm determined to be there.
You'll be there.
You'll be there.
Not a long time away. Like when I first started para powerlifting, everything was so far in between competitions and stuff. And now that it's ramped up, and you're at the top tier, there's no time for anything.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy when you understand the Paralympic cycle, and even like the Brisbane is now going to be the 2032 Paralympic Games. They'll be held in Brisbane. But the cycle and how it works, Honey, isn't it like how fast these things come around when the plans are put into place? Like you sort of think it seems so far away, but so much of the work that you do now is what's going to get you towards Glasgow and then LA and all these things. So it's so exciting to watch.
Yeah, I think it's because it's a strength cycle, and strength is very different to when you start doing like field track and athletics and all that kind of stuff. Like it's a different type of cycle, and it's just when you're constantly just like benching 5-6 days a week, and it's all about strength and precision.
Precision, yeah.
And you have to build it slowly. So many times throughout the year. Like last year, I did 4 competitions, I think it was. And I just like, by the end of it, I was just like gassed. Yeah. Absolutely gassed.
It's a lot on because you're so focused and you're trying to be precise with all parts of it, not just, just training. It's like nutrition, it's sleep, like you were saying before, and, then managing a relationship and a social life and, different things like that as well. So it's a big commitment, isn't it?
And all the media commitments that go behind it as well, with your sponsors and all that kind of stuff. And you've got to do all those bits and pieces and it just it gets really busy, it gets very fatiguing, but it's very rewarding. I tell everyone that when you finally get to that village, and you will know what it's like, Courtney, when as soon as you walk in there and all the little goodies that get thrown at you, you know you've won.
Yeah.
That's what you work towards getting there.
Incredible.
That's the pinnacle of your cycle, and the whole athletic career is getting to that games. Whatever happens on the platform is like a different story, but yeah.
Seeing all those flags of all the different countries and that too is just crazy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot to acknowledge, you know, having a supportive partner as well, because I know that Ali probably has to pull back and sit back and watch you take on these things a lot of the time as well. So it's really important to acknowledge the support that you have there, and I think you're really lucky to have a lovely partner like Ali that supports you the whole way. And yeah, it's really cool.
I do. And if I get an opportunity to bring her along to any of these like little bits and pieces and stuff, 100%. She's like, I want to come. I really want to support everyone that's doing the sport, like, you know, our functional workshops and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Do some of the video work and that kind of stuff, and take pictures, because we're often not thinking about those things in that moment and stuff. And just anything that I do, like if she can come along, she'll come along, and I'll include her in that experience, because I get to jet set around everywhere now at the moment, which is, it's nice. Like, I make sure I have that time with her.
And it's important for you to have that balance with your partner as well, because that's what brings out the best in you, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
But I know from the other side of things too, that when you're in the bubble and it's competition and game is on and you've got to do all these things, you actually don't have time to do normal life things, do you? Like, I know as being Simon's partner, like, it's time to just let you go, guys, go do your thing. You've got to focus. This is what happens. We'll see you later on in the week when it's time to celebrate and have dinner.
Yeah, it's very hard to manage that. That's why I think this Melbourne trip that I booked, like, I hadn't seen my brother in almost 2 years, because it's been almost 2 years since my mum passed away.
Yeah.
And I remember just before Paris, like, I went, you know what? Like, I need me time. I need some family time.
Cup filling.
Away, yeah. And I just went, stuff it. If I don't start booking it now, like even just going to musicals, I love musicals. Shows, that kind of stuff. Yeah, like, if you don't book it in now, then you'll never book it in, because either you'll miss out on a ticket or there's not enough time in the month, that kind of stuff, you know. So I said, stuff it. So I booked it in. So this week got locked in. I had no excuse but to go, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. So the year is going to be filled with that. The next Paralympic cycle will be filled with that. Just making sure I just take time out for myself and my family, and making sure that we're all reconnecting, because it can be really full on for your family to sort of, you know, watch you go through all of this, because most of the time you're training and then you're sleeping. Yeah.
Eat, sleep, train, repeat. You're doing an amazing job, and thank you so much for making time for us on this trip to chat. I really, really appreciate it.
We really appreciate it. And we wish you all the best of luck in your Glasgow prep. And it's always a pleasure to speak with you, Hani. And thank you for being our first guest on our podcast. And
awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Hani. Can I ask you one question? If Simon's like your little brother, does that make me your sister-in-law?
Yes. Yeah, we're sisters. I love that.
And our next guest will be Brittany from the Strength Guys. And yeah, we look forward to bringing back Simon after that to talk more about para powerlifting. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Hani.
Thanks, Hani. Bye.
Bye.